You are on a Greyhound bus number 1170. It is July 30th, 2008. The bus is traveling on the highway, and it is a long 22-hour trip on the Trans-Canada Highway. There are 38 passengers on board. It is the end of the afternoon, and it is still quite hot. At the back of the bus is 22-year-old Tim McLean. He is traveling back from Edmonton, and he is going back home to Winnipeg. He is tired. He has been working at a fair, and he goes at the back of the bus to find a bit of quietness and tries to get to sleep. He puts his headphones on and leans his head against the window pane. At 6:55 p.m, the bus stops in Erickson, Manitoba. A tall man walks in. He is in his 40s. His head is shaved and he is wearing a pair of dark sunglasses. And he sits at the front of the bus. At 8 p.m, the bus makes a rest stop, and the man gets off the bus to smoke a cigarette. When he comes back onto the bus, he decides not to go back where he was seated. Instead, he walks down the aisle of the bus, carefully looking at every single passenger on his way. He stops next to Tim McLean. The seat next to him is vacant. The man slowly sits down. His name is Vince Lee, and he was born in China on the 30th of April 1968. He graduated from the University of Wuhan Institute of Technology stayed all night and was spotted at 3 a.m. sitting upright with his eyes wide open. In the morning of July the 30th, he was still on the bench, and he sold his brand new laptop computer to a teenager for the price of $60. Back on the bus, a passenger notices that Lee has a knife in his bag. Tim was still sleeping while listening to music. At 8:30 p.m., Lee, who had been very quiet and distant until now, started to change his behavior. He was starting to fidget and was singing in Chinese in a very low voice. Without a warning, he pulls out his long knife from his pack and plunges it into Tim's neck. Blood spattered all around the bus. Terrified passengers scream for the bus to stop, and they run out the front door. Tim is on the aisle floor, and Lee is still plunging at his throat and chest. One man notices his wife still sat in her seat, paralyzed with fear. Her husband runs back on board and grabs her and pulls her out of the bus. The bus is parked on the side of the highway, and passengers are gathered in front of the bus, watching what is going on inside. The bus driver and a removes Tim's heart, his lungs, and liver. He then rips out his stomach. Every piece of Tim is thrown about in the bus. But it gets even worse. People in panic have called the police, and Lee seems to be cutting out more pieces of flesh from Tim's body and stuffs them in his mouth. Lee swallows Tim's eyes and part of his heart. He cuts off his nose and ears. He smells them and licks the blood from his fingers. 8:30 p.m. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police in Portage-la-Prairie receive the report of a stabbing on a Greyhound bus west of the city. They arrive to find the suspect still on board. Lee is stabbing through any opening he can find. Passengers are crying, others are vomiting. Lee had tried to escape by driving away with the bus, but the driver had hit the emergency immobilizer. When not trying to get off the bus, Lee prowls up and down the length of the bus, returning to Tim, slicing pieces off and feeding them into his mouth. Carrying Tim's head around, waving it to the window, sending blood all over the bus. Ambulances arrived and passengers were severely traumatized. Some still haven't recovered to this day. 1:30 a.m. Lee breaks one of the windows of the bus and tries to jump out. The police shoots him twice with a taser and handcuff him. It took 5 hours before Lee was arrested. There was blood all over the place. Lee had put and eaten parts of Tim McLean into plastic bags, and police found Tim's ears, nose, and tongue in Lee's pockets. The trial took place 1 year later, and he was charged with second-degree murder. The court ruled that he was not criminally responsible on account of mental disorder. A psychiatrist told the court how Lee had heard a voice coming from God, telling 2005, out of nowhere, he took a plane to Toronto and started walking back home after he heard the voice of God telling him to return home. That's when he had first been sent to a mental health center and diagnosed with schizophrenia. He was provided with medication that he refused to take, and he was released 10 days later against medical advice. The voice of God went on giving more violent instructions. After his arrest, he said he was an evil son of an evil God, and that God chose him as the killer and Tim as the victim, adding that he believed that Tim had supernatural powers, and that's why he decided to decapitate him and remove his body parts to make sure he wouldn't come alive again. He said God controls all things, and God made me do it. He remembered every detail about the homicide. Before his release, he recognized that he needed to continue his medication. In 2017, in February, he was granted an absolute discharge and is now a free man, living independently in a Manitoba community. The province Criminal Code Review Board ruled he is no longer required to attend annual reviews or abide by conditions. He later changed his name to Will Lee Baker. He has no family, no friends, no support, and no medication. Just a quick word to let you know that I received a suggestion to do a soft spoken video. I have never done any soft spoken videos, so in my next video I will be doing this soft spoken voice, and let me know if you enjoy it. Sweet dreams. Thank you for following me.